Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Business Talks. I am your host, Chawanne Burns. In today's video, we are going to discuss Stellantis and the UAW. Stellantis is threatening to sue, or actually, they're not threatening. They actually filed a lawsuit against UAW because the UAW went against their contract to vote on the strike. I discussed a little bit of this prior, I believe it was Tuesday. So we'll talk more about that. Also, there was Abby Phillips. They were talking about Teamsters and Kamala Harris. The Teamsters, usually they actually endorse a candidate, and normally it's like a Democratic candidate, even though probably most of the members, Teamster union members, do not particularly vote Democratic, but they end up voting for mainly Republicans. But they decided to sit out this election. So on Abby Phillips' show, I want to highlight a portion of that show because they got into a debate whether or not Kamala is a strong leader. And it took a turn because they had a black lady on there. I forget what her name is, but she's a black lesbian. And she just really got upset because one of the guys said, I don't look to her as a strong leader just because he doesn't like her. So, and it was his own personal opinion. And she took offense to it. And she tried to say it was pretty much sexist and racist for him to think that way. Anyway, I want to talk more about that. And then we got some other stuff that I want to view. So you guys stay tuned. And we'll stay tuned to another episode of Business Talks.
Something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad. Looks a little something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad.
That's right. You guys put in the chat, let me know where you're viewing from. Please put in the chat, let me know where you're viewing from. I see, who do we have in the building? Celeste Hodge, thank you for tuning in from Texas. Justin Thompson, hello everyone. Jerome Black, D-Town, all day baby, 313. What up though? Jerome also is saying, looking good, Chawanne. Thank you, Jerome. You guys, I got a late start because I worked out earlier today, and I don't know if it's my acid reflux. Then I ate, and I don't know. It's just feel like I got something stuck in my chest. So if I start drinking water profusely, it's because I don't want to be like regurgitating or Anyway, too much information. But I really appreciate you guys for tuning in. Get noticed with Nikki is in the building listening while at work. Well, I really appreciate you. Okay, you guys, we're going to get into it. I kind of prepared a slideshow, trying to be all professional and stuff. But reason why I wanted to prepare a slideshow for you guys is because I noticed that you can see this, right? Okay. Just to, get my talking points. Now, I'm going to talk about the UAW first. We were talking about jobless claims, but I want to talk about the UAW. The UAW, now, so I already talked about that they're planning to go on strike, okay? And this is a breach of contract. Basically, Stellantis is saying that they're breaching, the UAW is breaching their contract. Let me see if I don't think this is the right one. Stellantis. You guys, just a second. Stellantis. Against UAW. There we go. Okay, I just want to share this first. Okay, so Stellantis is filing lawsuits, new lawsuits against the UAW. Okay, and it's claiming that Monday it filed 8 additional lawsuits against UAW and 23 local units, saying union has violated its contract by threatening to strike over the company's delay in planned investment. Okay. Shawn Fain is the UAW president. And what I'm told by Shawn Fain, told by people that work at Chrysler, Shawn Fain is a person that worked for Chrysler his whole entire life. And he has the mentality, hey, we need to stick it to the corporation, these millionaires and billionaires. Okay. This is going to tie into what Kamala and Teamsters. Okay. This is all going to tie together, but you guys bear with me. Okay. So Shawn Fain, he has this, what do you want to call it? A perception that, hey, if you make millions of dollars as a CEO, you should share the wealth. I'm not saying that statement isn't true, but we need to take a look at, okay, usually the CEO, their base salary is whatever their base salary is, but they mainly, like, probably 60 to 70% of their salary, it comes from profit sharing. So if the company does good, their salary essentially goes up. They get this big bonus. And so a lot of times when you hear people talking about, oh, they made, like Mara, I believe her last name is Mara of GM. She made like $40 million one year because GM had a phenomenal performance year. So then, she made $40 million. Okay, this is $1 billion corporation. Why wouldn't the CEO make $40 million? Now, the caveat to that is the banks, not Joe Biden, but Barack Obama bailed out but UAW and Chrysler, they got bailed out by Barack Obama. Okay, so the workers, they did not receive any pay increase, but it was written into their contract. Okay, so they met in their contract. They stopped them at, I think it was $32 at Chrysler for skilled trade. I think it was $32 or $36. And then GM was stopped at a certain. So for 10 years, they essentially did not get a raise. Okay. But they knew that was part of that. So that's why they went on strike last year, because they saw, okay, you guys you paid your bailout money back. You're in the black, so why can't you start increasing our wages? Okay, anyway, I said that to say, long story, Shawn Fain is one of those type of individuals that he wants to stick it to the big corporation. So he's trying to get his career started. I think maybe he's trying to get into the political realm, but I think he's not... He's real liberal, number one, and he doesn't really know how business work. Okay, and this is why I'm saying this. Okay, so they filed the lawsuit, and they're saying that Stellantis agreed in 2023 as a part of the UAW contract to invest in $1.5 billion in its shuttered Belvidere, Illinois assembly plant to bid build the mid-sized trucks by 2027. Part of the $19 billion is overall investment plans. Stellantis acknowledged in August delaying some investments because the economic condition, but said firmly stands by its commitment. Okay, they're putting it on hold. We're going to put this on hold because of the economic conditions. Okay, and the UAW wants to reinstate the job bank for employees in Belvidere and 900 employees who transferred from Belvidere and are working elsewhere. Under the 2023 contract, employees awaiting resumptions of work at Belvidere get 74% of the pay and full health care benefits, Stellantis says. Okay. Now, Stellantis is really drawing a line. This is from Harley Shaken, a labor professor. I don't want to read what they're saying. It says the Department of Energy in July said it plans to award Stellantis $334 million to convert the Belvidere assembly plant to an EV, but the award still is not final. Now, in their contract, in this union contract, it does have provisions about this Belvidere plant. Okay, the Belvidere plant is we will still open this Belvidere plant or convert it to EV, this truck vehicle, Ram truck vehicle, only contingent of the economy, and it's written in their contract. Of course, a corporation will not agree to invest $19 billion of their money if they don't have contingencies in place. It doesn't make sense. This is why it goes back to my original statement. Shawn Fain really doesn't know how business works. Okay. So I don't know if Shawn Fain is like the best. I mean, I know you want to represent your employees and get more jobs, but right now you're threatening to go on strike and you really don't have the upper hand. So hence the lawsuit. Stellantis is saying, hey, you might have didn't read this contract, dude, because it's written in this contract. So back to what I want to share with here. Now, this is from the Detroit Free Press. It says Stellantis reports a 20% drop in the third quarter U.S. sales, with Chrysler and Dodge hit the hardest or hit hard. Okay. So they're saying that, they dropped in 20% in sales. And, how can you force someone to open or invest in a plant and you you don't realize that, hey, we're not making any money. Matter of fact, it's going downhill. Okay, we're not making any money. We're not turning over a profit. Matter of fact, we're going in the red. So why would we open up another plant? We might have to sell off some of these brands. And there were talks about Stellantis selling off their brands. Now, Stellantis have changed over, I guess you want to call their owners, actually probably about 3 or 4 times. They were Daimler Chrysler at once, Fiat, and now they're Stellantis. And Stellantis is not an automaker. It's not an automaker. And this is over the last, 3 years or 10 years, maybe 12 years. So you're talking to Stellantis like they're not in to make a profit. They're just doing it to bring jobs. No, they're in to make a profit. And they don't really care about your jobs as long as they make a profit. And they're going to lay off a lot of people. In the meantime. Okay? So you're threatening to go on strike and it doesn't make sense. And so they had a rally yesterday. They had a rally Thursday. and it says at the Sterling Heights and Warren stamping plant. Okay. The union accuses Stellantis of not keeping their investment commitment contracted negotiation last year. Okay, we already went over that. And right now, the UAW is facing numerous lawsuits over what it calls shams and grievances filed by the union with the company, noting that it intends to seek monetary damages. Union locals have been filing grievances with the company as they move towards the strike authorization votes. Strike authorization votes from the local, however, does not necessarily guarantee a strike will happen. They're basically saying, hey, you know, they got to authorize a strike, and then all the employees have to agree to the strike. And I believe they go plant by plant. They just collectively, hey, does this plant agree, the majority agree with the strike, and that particular plant would go on the strike. And it's saying UAW President Shawn Fain in Wednesday rally announcement said the union will push Stellantis to follow through on this agreement. It says the commitments we won in our contract aren't goals, they're guarantees. The company claims they don't have the money to make these investments, but since the year began, they've done more than $3 billion into stock buybacks. They had the money to keep their promise. Well, that's just a strategic move. Okay, they sold off their stock to probably raise money, right? And now they want to buy it back to probably keep the majority of the shares. But that, you know, that's a strategic. It could be numerous of reasons why they will buy $3 billion worth of stock back. So, and that's why I go back to my original statement. Shawn Fain, he just like tunnel vision. We need to strike because they're not doing what we're saying, you know, and he just read that first line of the contract agreement in that paragraph, and he probably didn't read the fine print. Shawn Fain, you didn't read the fine print, and now they're probably going to rule in Stellantis' favor. Okay, and we already discussed the 20% decline in sales. Now, yesterday, I believe this was yesterday, or was this morning? This morning they had a let me get my charger. Okay, so this morning they had a jobs claim surge to its highest level in more than a year. Okay. It says temporary boost from Hurricane Helene strikes and plant shutdowns seen as claims rise from 33,000 to 258,000. Okay. Remember when I was talking about Stellantis, this is before they said, hey, we're going to go on strike. No, they're laying off people as we speak. They're laying off people. I believe now this is just in Michigan or in Detroit, Metro Detroit. Warren stamping, this Warren truck, I think is next to Warren stamping, and the Jefferson plant. And I think it's another plant on 17 Mile. I forget. I think that's called the trucking plant. But all those plants, they went down to just one shift. And as a matter of fact, usually since my husband is in the union, he usually have to be there on the weekends. If they have somebody there, he had to come home. If nobody's there, he can't be there. So he had to come home. But literally, they only have, now the place where he works at, they operate 14 lines. He told me the other day, they're only operating 2 lines. Now, and this is the Warren stamping, they take care of every type of car. You know, they have some lines that they do for the Jeep, the Ram, and what have you. So they get a mixture of things. So they always operating 24/7, and they are down to 2 lines, and they have a total of about 16 people there. And they not on the strike. They're literally laid off. So this is why the jobs claim surged to the highest level in more than a year. Okay, so we know the economy is looking pretty bad. Also, a strike by 33,000 Boeing workers could be hitting the numbers. Michigan has the largest gain in claims, up to 9,400 on the week. Okay, we already said Stellantis ain't looking good. Now they talking about Boeing. Now, I think they have a Boeing plant in Michigan. I have to check, but I know we do something for Boeing. But, well, I forget what the plant is called, but they make parts for Boeing. Anyway, on the inflation side, rising prices across a variety of food categories showed that it's proving sticky. Egg prices leaped up to 8.4% higher than the 12-month adjusted gain at 39.6%. Butter is up 2.8% on the month and from 7.8% from a year ago. So I guess butter is down or up. I don't know. Anyway, and they were talking about they cut Fed rates, but it went up slightly higher. Okay. So I want to share this with you before I go to my next story. Now, so we know they're cutting jobs. People out here looking crazy. Okay. They're looking crazy, but this is what we call Bidenomics. This is Bidenomics in full effect. Once inflation is high, high enough, then you get this bubble. We were looming in a recession for the last year or two. And then now it's starting to crash down. Now, okay, we're starting to see inflation. This is what normally happens when we see a recession. The inflation starts to taper off, and then people start losing their jobs left and right. And people go crazy. We get some type of natural disaster, which is happening, and people go crazy. Okay. Now, and that, I don't think the natural disaster would probably end up losing a few jobs just for a few months, maybe. But this is what I'm getting at. Okay, so Teamsters usually sign on to endorse a Democrat, and they decided this year they're not going to sign on. And this is what they're discussing. Shout out to Black Conservative Perspective. This is his channel. And this is Abby Phillips, and I forget what her name is, but she always say I'm a black lesbian. Okay, she has to let everybody know that she's a black lesbian. So I don't even know her name. I know she's a black lesbian now. No. And there's another woman on this show. She's saying I'm a white lesbian. Okay, so how many lesbians, and why do we have to make that proclamation? To me, is a little bit ridiculous. But they like to make these proclamations. Now, and at this particular point, Abby Phillips is asking this lady, do you really think Democrats are for the working class? And this is what she said. And then it gets on to, Kamala Harris being strong.
Okay, I'll say that, sure. We're the party of the...
I'm sorry. Let me slow it down.
Machine, $15.7 million. We've given Republicans about 340,000, truth be told. So it's like, people say the Democratic Party is the party of the working people. They're bought and paid for by big tech. Those big tech companies.
And at this point, can you really say that the Democrats are the party
the party of big tech at this point.
I don't know. I mean, that's not where I was going with my point, but sure, maybe. I mean, I think, okay, I'll say that. Sure.
You guys, let me know if you could hear this feed. I'm sorry. Because, I've been struggling, streaming over here.
We're the party of big tech. I think, though, the question I thought you were going to ask me is that, are we the party of the working class? And I want to just take a step back and say, like, well, what is working class these days? And I think when people say that, they mean white men in the middle of the country. And I think that then we should use a different descriptor. And because there are a lot of people who are working class that have from every different background. I also think for the Teamsters to say, to the congressman's point, we have stood behind labor. Where's Trump on the picket line? Where's Trump saving Lordstown in my hometown where it closed? It was on the verge of closing in Youngstown, Ohio. It was his policies that took that factory out. And it was...
I think she's being very disingenuous. This is why Trump, they gave him a bunch of shit about the tariffs, okay? Even though Joe Biden extended the tariff policies of Trump, but she's being disingenuous, okay? Trump, he is for the working class, okay? This is why he initiated tariffs, is because he's trying to incentivize people, number one, to make stuff in America, and number two, incentivize manufacturers to come home. Okay, so I think she's being disingenuous when she is making these claims.
And it was the Biden policies that brought it back. It was it was the Biden policies who brought chips and manufacturing. I think that the problem is that working class people feel like no party is really talking to them, and they're looking for people that they can identify with. And it's not about policy. It is so when you say here in the first segment, and I'm not attacking you on this, but when you say, I don't see her as strong, okay, but I'm not, I want to have a real conversation with you right now.
Sure. It's my opinion.
What black women do you see as strong? And what black women do you have in your life?
It's not about race. I know plenty of strong black women. It's not
in your
about,
life?
Don't bring up the race thing.
Well, the reason why I say is that is because we are human beings, and the way we engage with things is by proximity. And if you've ever worked you know that it's all about, you're saying go on the factory floors because you want to connect to the human experience.
Of course.
And if you've never really connected to a strong black woman in your life, then maybe you don't actually understand what her strength is and where it comes from.
Well, listen to this.
She sounds totally ridiculous. I need to connect with the strong black woman to do what? Okay. Strong black women. You guys act like we're on the field building buildings. What do you mean by the strong black woman? I don't want to be a strong black woman. Yeah, please take out the trash. And me and my husband, we was joking, spatting with each other. And he was like, oh, you lift the bag out the trash can, but you didn't take it out the door. Hello, I'm not the trash guy. No, I don't want to be a strong black woman. Yeah, I did that in courtesy because I don't want the trash overflowing. But yeah, this is your duty. I'm not trying to be a strong black woman. I got in an argument when I used to work at the plant. They wanted us. I used to be, before I was hired as an engineer, I used to be a safety watch, and they wanted us to walk from one place to the next place, and it was like maybe 2 miles to even get there, and they didn't want us to leave the plant to go and to the other side of the plant. There were 2 different plants. They want us to walk, and I was like, well, no, I'm not gonna do that. And it was 90 degrees. I told him, no, I'm not, I don't know what you thought this was. I'm going to say that you better schedule me in this vicinity because I put my foot down. I'm not a man. And that's what I told him. I'm not a man, and I'm not trying to be one. But we have plenty of younger men on the field, able-bodied. You make them walk around and, do across America. I'm not doing that. So when we say strong black woman, I think it's a problem when we say that. We put that label on us, and we're really not physically strong. Mentally, I don't know. Because even when you think about certain jobs, like trading jobs, most women don't succeed at those jobs because they don't have the oomph, the brain to take the pressure. Oh, if I trade on this particular stock, it might not go my way. We can't take that pressure. Guys generally, they take more risks. Okay, they take more risks than females. So when we categorize, okay, what do we mean by strong black woman? And you're saying Kamala Harris is strong. No, Kamala Harris, this is why the Prime Minister of Israel is not listening to her or Joe Biden. They're not seen as strong. Everybody knows it. So why are you getting mad? I don't understand. What is her problem? This is just obvious things that people could see. I would even say Hillary is stronger than Kamala. Way stronger than Kamala. You guys put in the chat, let me know what you think. I think Hillary is way stronger than Kamala. And Hillary is a nut job. But if we're talking about strong woman, she's not black, but I wouldn't think, when I think of strong black woman, I think of somebody that, don't take no mess, and I don't see strong when I see Kamala. I see a cackling, kind of almost like a, you don't take serious. She's kind of a dingbat, that type of girl. Not somebody who I would look to and make good decisions. She would be, if I had a list of 10 people, Kamala Harris might be number 10.
Listen.
I'm going to bypass his commentary and I want to get to this part.
That liberal black women tend to be weak.
About Trump with Elon Musk joked about firing people and anti-union in his discussion with them. That's one. Two, Democrats or Republicans, guess what? Automation is coming, whether you like it or not. Right. And Elon Musk is behind it 100%. And Reid Hoffman's behind it, along with AI. It's coming, Sean. I'm sorry to tell you, just the way mechanized farming was coming, just the way information workers are going to be replaced in certain ways. And so it's not a Democrat or Republican at all. It's all of the rich people, and they will in 2 seconds replace you with a.
But it's not just about tech. I mean, you sorry.
Go ahead.
When President Trump came into office, it's because you had this fraying of a post-World War II world order where you had hollowed out middle class across the country, black, white, brown, didn't matter. Everyone was hollowed out. So Trump was coming into office talking to those people. And the first major piece of legislation, which was tax reform, had incentives to bring capital back and manufacturing back. And since that first piece of legislation, every single major piece of legislation since then, Democrat or Republican, has had, whether it's chips or what have you, have had incentives to bring manufacturing back. So both parties recognize that this is an issue, that these are the people that
but
need
he's
to
not
speak to.
pro-labor.
Real quick.
Yeah, I just wanted
but he's
to.
not pro-labor. He doesn't support unions. He doesn't believe in
He supports working class America.
This is a bad argument. I don't support unions, so I'm not pro-labor. That you can't say that's true because you don't support unions. I think the unions have ruined the labor industry. I think unions, and we could talk about, remember the guy, he makes like $900,000 and he's essentially holding the will of the American people. He's over the docks. He's holding the will of the American people because he wants to increase the wages. So he, at a bad time where it's hurricane season, you want to stop importing and in the docks that you're over. And you're not affected, because when you're a union president or CEO or whatever position that is, you're not paid through the actual company. You're paid through the union and the people that pay their dues in the union. So he makes $900,000 a year. He had this lavish household and he wants to go on strike. You know, the people that's at that dock, I think their wages are like $55 to $67 an hour, and he said they deserve more. So, I mean, they're making way more than, you know, the average American citizens. But number one, you're holding the wheel of you know, American economy, because essentially if you stop loading at the ports of entry, you're just essentially stopping the U.S. economy. People are not going to be able to get their goods. You see what I'm getting at? So unions, I mean, I think they do have some good, but ultimately, I believe they are more harmful than good. And that's why you see a lot of people, they don't even want to be in the union. You know, because you're holding my job at will. What if I don't want to go on strike? I got mouths to feed at home. I don't want to go on strike. I'm happy with my $67 an hour because I got mouths to feed. But they don't care. They just want to make a name for themselves and, you know, go to their $9 million house or $5 million house, and they will still get paid. I'm looking at this camera, but you're right here. But I think there's some good in the union, but I think it does more harm than good.
But I wonder.
But working class Americans get protected through unions. We know that when working class people don't have the ability to negotiate, when UAW went on strike because the CEOs year after year of those big three car companies got raises, and those individuals that were on the factory line that we're saying these candidates need to go talk to, they weren't getting raises after they had the bailout happen. Donald Trump doesn't care that their union is protecting them.
But you know, there are a lot of people, and I mentioned that before, they didn't get raises for years, but a lot of people don't mention they do get a profit sharing based off of the company's performance. And those checks are huge. Normally they're huge. So I might not get a raise, but my profit sharing fluctuates. But if we have good sales and our profits are really high, my profit sharing is really high. Okay, even though it's taxed. You know, that's the only thing I don't like about it. They shouldn't tax a profit sharing, and it's heavily taxed. I think you get like 50% taxed on those profit sharings.
Biden is the one who says we want them to have collective bargaining. When I was in Ohio and they wanted Wisconsin, Scott Walker wanted to get rid of collective bargaining. John Kasich, Ohio, wanted to get rid of collective bargaining. Donald Trump doesn't believe in collective bargaining.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the fallacy in this woman's argument. She's essentially making the argument that pro-union equals pro-working class. That's actually not the case at all, okay? Because these unions aren't necessarily for the people as much as they're for themselves, more specifically the people at the top of the union, right? A union is just like any other organization in the sense that there is a hierarchy, okay? And the people at the top tend to reap a vast majority of the benefits of being a part of a union.
Yeah, and he's absolutely correct. They reap the hierarchy. If you're at the top of the union, you reap the vast majority of the benefits. So if we go on strike and I say, yeah, you know, we want to go on strike, but my paycheck is already cut because you elected me to be your leader. Okay. So anyway, so that was that. Okay. One thing I could say about this particular interaction with this lady, she's always left to the extreme. She's never like, oh, I could see both sides of the story. She always calls out, oh, you're being racist. It's like, no, not really. I'm not being racist. I just don't see her as a strong woman. And then she's not looking as Donald Trump. I guess Donald Trump, he doesn't like labor workers. He doesn't like black people. He doesn't like, who else he doesn't like? Immigrants. They had this big story about immigration too. He really hates immigrants because he talked about the bloodline of the immigrants. Well, he was talking about murderers or genetics of the immigrants. No, and he was talking about the murderers that are coming over here. Anyway, so she's really extreme, and she doesn't never see one side to both stories. It's just one track mind, and I hate Trump, and Kamala is so good. She's a strong black woman. Well, they probably won't say that, but she's not black. I wish some other black person would get on there and say, well, I don't think Kamala's black, but that's neither here nor there. Just pull a card, like, because she's always they're always like, Kamala is such a great person. But Kamala is suffering at the polls as well. Now, if we go to, and I'm going to get to your comments in just a minute. Kamala this is a meme that I just came across. It says Barack Obama saying we effed up, and Pelosi said, wake up, Joe, it's time to get back in the race. It's time to get back in the race. Now, this is I forgot, I wasn't even sure. Let me go back to that post. Wake up, Joe. We effed up. This is Barack saying we effed up, calling Pelosi. And Pelosi, I guess she's calling Joe Biden back. Wake up! Wake up, Joe. It's time to get back in the race. This is MAGA Meme Coin. He said, rumor is Democrats are scrambling to get Joe Biden back in the race. Now, Polymarket came out with another odds. This is their gambling odds, and they're saying 54% chance that Donald Trump will win, 45% chance that Harris will win. So I guess it's their predictions or forecasts. And then somebody put another one. Oh, that's outdated. This is up by 55.5%. So, I don't know. I think more interviews Kamala Harris does, I think she's actually tanking. It's not looking good for her. And then they could say how much disinformation they want to say about this hurricane disaster and the FEMA getting out there and contacting people. But, they're saying it's disinformation or misinformation, which is, I don't know what disinformation means. But we know that everybody ain't lying. And I think that's going to hurt Kamala at the polls because she's in office right now, even though she's the vice president. Okay. It's saying on this interactive polls, I don't really go by polls, but it's something to look at. It says swing state polls. Georgia, this is 50 to 45. Arizona, Trump up 49 to 46. Nevada, 50 to 47. Pennsylvania, 49 to 48. Wisconsin, 49 to 48. Michigan, 49 to 48. And North Carolina, 48 to 47. and they're saying they have a memorandum that's posted. It says the latest internal battleground state polling, president holds edge in all battleground states, and they're having a percent net error of 0.3 points in Arizona, Georgia 0.5, Michigan 0.1. I'm reading this wrong. I thought this was the percent error, but anyway, they're saying he's up in all of the battleground states. Okay, so it's not looking good for Kamala, and Kamala, she continues to go on these interviews and looking like a fool. Now, this is, I'm not for sure how long this interview was, but remember I shared with you Kamala Harris was on The View, and Sunny Holston asked her, hey, if there's anything, what would you have done differently than Joe Biden? And this is what this lady said. Let me know if you guys could hear this.
Done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Molly, what do you make of that?
I'm surprised, frankly, that she doesn't have more to say about this, given that she and her campaign know that this is one of the main questions that voters have about her. And one of the main things she's been trying to establish as part of her candidacy is the idea that she would represent a break from the past 4 years, and to not be able to come up with something to say in that moment. She continues to not be particularly nimble on her feet in a lot of these interviews, and this is a very obvious question that gave her an opportunity, frankly, to differentiate herself in a way that would have made news, that would have answered, I think, the curiosity of a lot of voters who want to know how she would lead differently. And she's not very specific in laying that out, and she can't point to a decision she would have made differently, which, in an electorate that thinks that doesn't like the way this administration has led, and that doesn't like the track that the country is on, that may not be a very satisfactory answer.
I mean, it's a delicate dance.
I don't think it's a delegate ban. I think that's what Danny Bash was going to say. No, Joe Biden is retiring. You need to put your foot down. This is why we don't think of you as a strong leader, because are you afraid to step on somebody's toes? No. Yeah, this is what I agree with. This is what I didn't agree with. I would have done X, Y, and Z differently. You should have thought that problem out or question out, because I'm pretty sure that's not the first time she heard that question. Now, the lady said she didn't think this made news. Yeah, it made news because now people are laughing at Kamala on her answer to this question. And she used the word nimble. No, she has no flexibility in her answers. If it's not scripted, Kamala Harris can't answer it. I saw a video when she was at a rally over the weekend, and the teleprompter went haywire, and she kept on repeating the same word over and over again, talking about 28 days or 32 days. Come on, Kamala. Let's what is going on with you? So yeah, nimble is not one of the things that people look at when we see Kamala Harris. We don't see a strong leader, and this is why she's suffering in the polls. Okay. Now, this was just posted. I don't know how old this video is, but she was speaking in front of the NAACP. This is why Kamala Harris, I think she's a communist. Okay. Kamala Harris is a communist. This is what she said during this speech.
Cyber warfare, and will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
I hope you guys heard that. She's talking about going after platforms, social media platforms, platforms that post to champion free speech. Now, there were a lot of people being suppressed, their posts being suppressed during the Biden and Harris campaign when they were running against Donald Trump. So a lot of people were, their information was suppressed. A lot of information was suppressed because of COVID. They put community notes on your board. They suppressed the language of conservative people on X before Elon Musk acquired it. So we're talking about this lady wants to expand the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. I think she's full of shit on that part. You're not expanding that. I mean, how much civil rights do you need? You're not expanding it, so stop pandering to black folks. And then you want to hold people like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and all these other platforms accountable when you think it's either misinformation and when you think the speech is hate. But you can hate on single men, single white men, single straight men. Those are okay. You guys openly hate on straight men everywhere. That's okay. You hate on women. That's okay. But you draw the line when they hate on you. Like, oh, we're going to draw the line in the sand right there. You're talking about Democrats. You're talking about liberals. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's what our First Amendment protects, our free speech. You might not like our talking points, and I might not like your talking points, but I do not have the right to suppress you. And she has the right to say this because it's First Amendment. But we have the right to dissect what she's saying and say, oh, no, that sounds like she's a communist. Government control. Let me get to some of your comments. Get noticed with Nikki. Teaspoon and yellow mustard and warm water is good for that. Okay, thank you. Make sure I take that. Shanita, stopping by to say hi, leaving a like button. Enjoy your day. Thank you, Shanita. Justin Thompson saying thank you to Shanita. Tyrone Price is saying hello. Kings on Live, why does the mainstream media openly defend and debate for Kamala? Because they're crazy. They're crazy. I see a lack of emotional restraint. Yes. But Kamala was raised in the middle class. I have a problem with union leadership. They are overpaid and have political mentality. That's just does enough to keep getting voted back in. Yeah, I think when you're a union rep or, especially in the higher ranking position, you're all about politics. You're trying to showboat, pander to your people to get reelected. Right now, I believe Sean Fain and that other guy. I can't think of the other guy that's over the docks. I think it's called ILA Union. But anyway, you're saying, hey, we're gonna strike because we deserve more money. And you get people riled up. Yeah, we deserve more money. They get on strike. You don't get regular, what is it called? Layoff pay with strike. They pay you like $100 a month or $100 a week. So you went from making $1,000 a month per se, $1,000 a month to $100 a week. Whereas if I was laid off, I get like $400 a month. Still not enough to take care of your family, or $400 a week. Not enough to take care of your family, but it's still more than the strike pay. So it's all showboat. It's all a political game. Unions have strike fund. Yeah, and they do pay into their strike fund. But like I said, that pay is is not very similar to the actual layoff pay. You guys don't forget to like and subscribe. Amari's saying complete government control. And that's what Kamala Harris is. We better watch out. Better be careful. Kamala Harris, she shifted her campaign and did a 180 turn to act like she's really moderate. But she's not. Kamala Harris is very, very liberal. And all she's trying to do right now is get elected. But you could see in this video, she was really extreme. Hello, Samuel. So anyway, let me see if I got anything else to share with you guys before I head out. Okay, just one last thing I want to share with you guys. Okay, this is about Hurricane Milton. Hurricane Milton, of course, they are expecting for it to be more disastrous than Hurricane Helene. Now, we talked about that, but this is the story that I want to share with you guys because, now, we're talking about conspiracy theories, and, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. On this post, it says CBS News, CBS Politics. Now, this was aired probably around 10 years ago. This is not a conspiracy theory on weather manipulation. The government holds dozens of patents on weather manipulation going back to late 1800. Even Mike Kaku knows this, but he's been threatened with his livelihood to say otherwise. Okay, so CBS do what reporters and journalists have done for centuries before Operation Paperclip and do your job. Exactly. Actually, questions and research. I don't know what they're saying right here. Government for information, because I believe they're saying quit relying on government for your information because they are lying to all of us.
Really? To change the about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change.
You guys put it in chat, and I want to make sure you can hear the audio.
About climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion,
no.
though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really? To change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning. Katie, go ahead.
Well, this fascinates me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo-jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have rain for crops? And if they don't have them, there's the consequences of famine.
Well, the bad news is if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting, Professor Michio Kaku. Thank you so much.
So now, and it's been a lot of talk about weather manipulation. That was aired maybe 9 or 10 years ago. And then I just started going on this research about weather manipulation. Now, this one lady, let me see if I can find it. She was fired from the government because she was a whistleblower. She was a whistleblower because she didn't know she was actually developing the technology in the lab where she was working at. Okay. And I guess she claims that in the lab, and this was a government lab, they will put certain chemicals in the air to cause the weather to change. Let me see if she is on here. You know what? It might be under my profile. Maybe not. Let me go back. And, you know, Robert F. Kennedy talked about it. And then Alex, who's this guy? This guy, they stripped of, you know, his money.
It just broke.
Now, so he in his segment, he's talking about weather manipulation. I think he's talking about the individual I was talking about earlier.
And this just broke. Congress is now confirming that Hurricane Helena did have U.S. government weather weapon planes in it. Now, we already have the tracks. We already have the tail numbers. They don't even hide this crap. It just broke. It's on Infowars.com. Breaking. Lawmakers briefed on weather modification tech conclude Hurricane Helena was DOD-linked weather weapon deployed against American people. Bombshell. There's Dale Whittington, who we're getting on the show, I think tomorrow. So there you go, of Geoengineering Watch with Colonel McGregor. Let's go ahead and air these two clips back to back.
The question here is, how does this hurricane's path differ from others that we've seen? I've already had a lot of people call me from the Asheville area, talk specifically about the horrendous damage, and many of them pointed out that...
I don't know why I couldn't think of his name, Alex Jones.
That is not Hurricane Alley, per se. It's not an area that normally attracts storms. Can you help us understand this?
Well, the bottom line is it was directed there, as the transmission recordings clearly show. They kept that moisture corralled there to deluge in the same location. So, again, these are patented technologies, and the fact that we have the entire so-called meteorological community denying that this is going on to protect their paychecks and pensions is absolutely criminal at this point. We know we have private defense contractors that are neck deep in the patents that manipulate these storms, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. We know those two in particular do the weather modeling for the nation's weathermen, National Weather Service and NOAA. Again, both agencies have an illegal federal gag order on them. So at this point, this is an emperor has no clothes moment. That's the best description I can give for something that is so blatantly obvious and inarguable, can only be considered weather warfare at this point. And the fact that, again, the so-called science community is denying this manipulation is criminal. It's absolutely criminal, Colonel McGregor.
If you can do so, could you tell us about some of your recent discussions, conversations, briefings that you've had with political leaders from the states in question that have asked you what you think? First of all, what did they specifically ask you, if you could tell us, and how did they respond to your answers?
Yes, Colonel McGregor, I had an hour conference call yesterday with the representatives and senators from the Carolinas, and we presented the data to them to answer their questions about how this manipulation occurs. They realized this was not a natural event. They're trying to digest the fact that their states were literally under assault from weather modification operations that are clearly connected with DoD operations, and we can speculate again on the agendas and objectives being carried out, but the fact that the storm was manipulated is absolutely inarguable. We know that technology to stop these rotations from even occurring has existed for decades with the manipulation of atmospheric pressure zones. HAARP in Alaska is one example many people are familiar with. That's an ionosphere heater. That's a weapon of mass destruction, period. It can cause an electrical chain reaction in the ionosphere, which heats it to extraordinarily high temperatures, which causes the atmosphere to bulge up and down. The downward push creates a high-pressure dome that can steer the jet stream. And the same type of manipulation can create low-pressure zones. When they have this type of power over the climate system, they can make or break these storms anytime they want. And again, what we see now is storms kept weaker as they're over the ocean because they're harder to steer until they reach the land-based network of transmitters. And then we have, Colonel McGregor, rapid intensification. You've heard that term probably a lot lately because that's how they manipulate these storms. And again, we have Acapulco last October being an extreme example.
Back it up 15 seconds. He's the head of Geoengineering Watch, Dane Whittington. He's on tomorrow for a full hour.
Okay, so, and I end up actually finding that other clip, and my bad. This is the lady that her name is Kristen Megan. She was an environmental specialist, and she's a U.S. Army whistleblower. She's claiming that she used to work at this location where they did geoengineering experiments, and she didn't know what it was actually used for, but this is what she had to say about this.
Here with Kristen Megan. She's a military veteran, right?
Yes, I was in the U.S. Air Force for 9 years.
Wow. And you came out and blew the whistle on geoengineering, things that you witnessed were going on. Can you give us the real nutshell?
Absolutely. Basically, I had heard of what many people know as the term chemtrails, And I worked in a job called bioenvironmental engineering, and I thought that was insane. And why would we do something like that? Modify the weather by using hazardous materials in our atmosphere? So, and actually the process of trying to debunk it or disprove it, I realized it was actually coming right out of my office, as I was one of the people that was approving the chemicals. And it really shook the core of my oath. And I did a lot of sampling, a lot of investigation, and I blew the whistle and I got out. And I've now used my credentials, my oath, and my powers for good to help people understand it's very real. It's now openly admitted. There are multiple forms of weather modification. I specifically found the one of stratospheric aerosol injection. And collectively around the globe, we have to understand that it is now being admitted because they're saying it's combating climate change. Well, the climate change we need to be worried about is man-made climate engineering, also known as geoengineering.
And when you say you had chemicals being pumped into the air, what kind of chemicals are they putting out that rain down on humanity, basically?
Nanoparticulate metals, like you had different sulfates and barium and strontium. I know it's probably changed over time. I know they use silver iodide for certain things, but these are the odd part of it was the quantities that I saw them coming in, the form that they were coming in, and it's the same type of materials that I was trying to engineer out of the workplace to substitute with safer materials. And when you notice that what's called the safety data sheet, the information about a chemical of what personal protective equipment to wear, how do you dispose of it, how do you pack it to ship it, when key information is missing, I ask questions, and my questions led to demonization, and I knew I found something I shouldn't have.
That's insane. So these metals are basically toxic for the humans, I would presume, or?
Yes, because it also has aluminum, and a lot of people will tell you, well, these things aren't horrible in small quantities. It's not small quantities, because when you are putting things above us, the dissipation rates are dependent on weather and climate, but it's getting into the food, it's getting into the soil. And around the world, wastewater treatment plants, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, or these toxicants is what they're called, they are not able to filter them out. So if you're growing organic food, are we going to go back to the plexiglass barriers on our plants? I mean, it's horrible. That's why you can ban it anywhere. We've had states in the United States ban it, and that is great to get the ball rolling. But people really need to wake up to it, irrespective of any political party. It's not okay. And you're seeing a huge increase in neurodegenerative issues like Alzheimer's. It's really difficult for people with respiratory issues and asthma. And people are wondering why they have allergies 24/7, 365.
And I liked what you said about that climate change or the change we experience in weather. Often we can't disconnect that from these geoengineering activities. Do you want to say something more about that? I mean, how do we feel that? Is there proof or so that is definitely coming from that?
Yes, there are places that openly admitted it. Remember Dubai? And then when people got upset, they retracted it, but the can was already opened. And the issue is, I know this sounds silly, but when you watch movies with time change, they say if you do something and something changes, it changes the ripple throughout time. If you are modifying the weather, you are messing with Mother Nature. And meteorology is a very, very thorough study. And I do know a lot of it because of my profession of plotting hazards. But it does not make sense when you are altering nature where things are not naturally supposed to occur. We had massive flooding in California, and we have a system called HARP that is in the United States. And the same people who demonized me 5-10 years ago are now going, wow, because they're finding it's openly admitted in all of our U.S. documents. The U.S. is absolutely not the only country doing it.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, thank you very much for coming out on that.
And, she mentioned about climate change. Now, I'm trying to not go down this rabbit hole, but bear with me. If the U.S. or other countries can manipulate, not if, but now that we know they're manipulating weather, okay? Climate change, are they essentially manipulating that? Is this an engineered response because of weather manipulation, or is climate change also engineered so we could get people riled up for a cause? Oh, climate change, we need to stop, keep people busy with this one thing, and all the while they're doing something behind the closet, like i.e. weather manipulation. You guys put in chat, let me know what you think. I know I kind of went on this rabbit hole, but we have to look, we're looking to the government to basically save us. And we got to save ourselves, people. We have to save ourselves. And then this is why I believe they called Robert F. Kennedy a conspiracy theorist and, kind of a crazy person, because that's one of the things that he used to talk about, weather manipulation and all the drugs that's coming into our food. He talked about vaccines. So I guess you could call him a conspiracy theorist, but it's not a conspiracy theorist if it's proven to be true. It maybe sounds wild to the American public. Maybe the government was trying to keep that information from us because they didn't want to start or incite some type of riot or violence, but they've been doing it for years. And so that's why I believe we can't trust our government. The government, they cause a problem and then they go behind the door and say, oh, we're going to cause this problem. And from whoever's in presidency now, i.e. Green New Deal, we're going to fix that problem. And we're going to keep the people focused on this Green New Deal. Like, yeah, we need clean energy. We need all this. We need all that. And the only reason why I'm talking about this is because, I used to work as an environmental engineer. And one of my jobs was to upgrade projects or upgrade equipment to follow environmental regulations. So say, for instance, I worked at a coal fire plant where they produce gasoline. And they had so many things attached to the boiler after the flue gas come out to capture the flue gas and to go out this stack to separate the bad from the good. And so it's like, okay, we have all these things that we put on or outfitted, to produce electricity, produce gas safer. And now you're saying, oh, we need to cut it out. We need to be extra safe. We need to stop fracking. Do you get what I'm saying? We need to stop fracking after corporations have already spent billions and billions of dollars on a certain thing. But now you're saying, oh, no, it's no longer safe. We need to cut it out. Well, who said it wasn't safe? Are you saying it's not safe because you're manipulating the weather? You caused the problem? You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm getting at? So you caused all these engineered problems, and now you're going to engineer a solution. And we could get to the pandemic. COVID, was it a planned pandemic? Was this a planned virus to spread around the world, to kill off a whole bunch of people? And then you got this cure saying, oh, everybody take the vaccine. And now you got to take booster shots for the rest of your life. It doesn't make sense to me. So I think we can't trust the government. And hopefully you guys, I didn't bore you to death with my conspiracy theories. But I really think the government, they have their hands behind their back doing one thing and telling us another. Okay. Noble Young is saying, I trust Joan Rivers and Alex Jones more than our entire government. Omari says, when I was younger, it was about the ozone layer and the global warming. Now it's about climate change. Yes. And you know what? And I do believe climate change is real. I did watch a documentary, and this was on the coast where, not Maryland, but where they do all the crab fishing at Maine, on the coast of Maine. And they were saying like they have, it's like a layer in right before you get to the inland. And this layer is basically, it shifts, shows you where the temperature is shifting. Okay. And the temperature is shifting at a certain rate faster than normal. And it's basically essentially will kill off all the crabs and all the life in the sea or in the ocean. So like I said, I do believe in climate change. And then the ozone layer, if you could manipulate weather, why can't you manipulate the ozone layer? Why wouldn't you be able to, get ozone layer is basically O3, I believe. So why wouldn't you be able to release that gas where the ozone layer has depleted at, and it become part of that layer? I mean, you manipulate weather. Why wouldn't you be working on that? And maybe they are. I'm not for sure. But like I said, is climate change engineered climate change, or is climate change really climate change because of what we've done throughout the years? You guys put in the chat. Let me know what you think. Justin Thompson, all wild to me. I make myself a tinfoil hat. And Omari, don't forget acid rain. Yes, that was a big thing when I was growing up too, acid rain. So do we even have acid rain anymore? I know they were like, oh, there's a storm coming. There's acid rain. Everybody inside. It's like, we don't hear that no more. So it's like, okay, is the government just telling us things that we're not smart enough to investigate? But now, since we have social media and we have people like Alex Jones and Robert Kennedy and other people that's actually doing like extensive research, and they could tell us, no, this is what I found. And that, we shouldn't believe what the government is telling us. Gary Williams, they are manipulating the weather, but ultimately Almighty God will have the final say so. Divine intervention. Amen. And it's all about the money. Yeah, it is. It is all about the money. Okay. That was it for our show today. You guys, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this channel. Tomorrow we are live on my other channel. That's Chawanne Burns 2.0. Make sure you stop by. We're going to be, I believe, 9:30. Starting at 9:30. And that is our runaround show. And we just go and we talk about hot topics or news topics across the globe. Okay, so it's not just stuck in the United States. So just tune in tomorrow on this channel at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we'll have a great show for you, me and super producer. Okay, so I really appreciate every single last one of you. I am sending all my good to you. I will talk to you tomorrow.